Good afternoon, everyone. So this is Kavita Ravi from the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center. I'm the Director of Strategic Analysis, and I will oversee this energy storage study that we are presenting. And this webinar is for the request for proposals. Just want to make sure that everyone can hear me. Perhaps you can type yes if you can hear me, please. Great. That looks like a lot of people can hear me. Thank you all for that. All right, so we'll get started quickly, and we have a very brief presentation here, and we'd like to save most of this hour for questions on the request for proposals that was published on the 20th or 21st of May. So I'll get started here. So very quickly on the solicitation overview, the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center is requesting proposals from consultants with significant expertise in the energy storage industry, markets, technology, and policy to research and prepare a two-part energy storage study. So we'll explain what this two-part study means in just a little bit. The MassCEC on this one, we're partnering with the Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources. My colleague, Amy McGuire, is here to co-host this webinar with me, and we will be partnering on this study to obtain a broad view of energy storage technologies to inform future policy and programs from administered by both our organizations. So the most important detail here for the proposals is that it's due on June 18th. And if you have questions, please do turn them in by June 9th. My colleague Emily Izzo, her emails on the RFP will be fielding these questions, and once we respond to you, we will also post them on the website as part of the FAQ. So the brief agenda for this webinar is we'll present the background and goals. Then we will talk to you about the two parts of this study that we're interested in. There's a brief slide on the eligibility and requirements for the applicants. And then we have the all-important slide on the timeline for the RFP process. So just to give a brief background, most of you must be aware of this, but we just wanted to set the context for this study and how we are thinking about it, and sort of try to give some context on what we aspire to learn from this study. So as we all know, there is an increasing and important and critical demand for resilient, efficient, affordable, and cleaner energy. And we think that energy storage could provide significant benefits for the energy grid, the ratepayers in Massachusetts, and the economy more broadly. We have seen signs of this in other states. And we think that there's a real promise in the Commonwealth for the continued development of energy storage technologies and the growth of energy storage companies. We're thinking of the range of applications that are listed here: renewable energy integration, peak shifting and shaving, ancillary services, addressing capacity issues, grid congestion relief where there's grid congestion, reducing costs on the transmission and distribution side, and of course, energy resilience. And we're also considering the range of technologies that are in various stages of deployment today, ranging from batteries through pump storage and flywheels and compressed air energy storage, to name a few. So now I want to talk about the two-part study that we have conceived here. So the first message I want to convey is that we want them to be conducted concurrently and in coordination with each other. And these two aspects will become clearer in the next 2 or 3 slides. We would like this study to provide specific insights into how we can advance the energy storage interests in Massachusetts based on discussions with stakeholders within the state and lessons from the other states. And we're thinking of this as not being sort of just a literature search or a model-based study. We really would like the 2 parts to be informed by engagement with stakeholders and a broad range of stakeholders at that, utilities, ISO New England, the suppliers, policymakers, regulators, and manufacturers. And here's what we seek to do with the study. Accelerate the development of commercially viable storage technologies, and support the energy storage companies in Massachusetts by attracting them, promoting them, and allowing them to grow. Exploring and expanding the different value streams for storage technologies. We see the applications of this in many other states, and we would like to understand how we can do this in Massachusetts. And in order to support that, we'd like to explore the possibilities of changes that are required under ISO New England, and also the changes in policy and regulations that are required in Massachusetts. So the first part of this study will be managed by MassCEC, and this is the study that will have the sort of the economic development bent. And we hope that this part of the study will analyze the industry landscape, the economic development opportunities, the immediate market opportunities under the existing policy and regulatory conditions, and industry-focused programs that can result from uncovering these market opportunities, and very specific demonstration projects that can help support the companies in the state and possibly new technologies. Again, the overall theme of this part 1 is to inform programs that we may run to support and grow the companies in the state. So from the merchant perspective, if you will. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Amy McGuire from Mass DOER, to talk about the part 2 of the study and complete the rest of this webinar.
Great. Thank you, Kavita, so much. We're certainly really looking forward to partnering with CEC on this, and I will move into giving you a little more information about the second part of the study that will be led by Department of Energy Resources, my organization, DOER. So this section, this part of the study will really examine policy opportunities for the Commonwealth and really look to see how we can better support deployment of storage across the state, as well as providing us with policy recommendations and cost-benefit analyses that we can not only use internally, but also help us provide recommendations for example, to Department of Public Utilities, the DPU, ISO New England, and the state legislature. So to that, this part of the study should really inform those government agencies listed here, as well as other government and utility system stakeholders as to what we can do and should do to promote energy storage. The other sort of key piece in this part, and there's a lot to it and more outlined in the RFP, but will be to really analyze the cost-effective level of storage that will benefit Massachusetts. So try to get to what amount of storage in Massachusetts is the optimal. Okay, we did want to cover a little bit of the requirements for both parts of the study and what we're looking for from an ideal candidate. We'd really like to ensure that whoever we hire to help us with this study really has an intimate knowledge of the energy landscape in general, particularly in Massachusetts and the other ISO New England states, of course. A strong relationship with a broad network of stakeholders in the Northeast region is also critical, as outlined in both parts. Kavita mentioned it and our part as well for DOER. It's going to be critical to engage a whole range of stakeholders, so having that broad network will be key. We would like our consultant to have a good knowledge of the energy storage technologies and industry and a track record of preparing reports like this. We know there have been some very well done ones already, and look to have this also be an excellent result. Knowledge of energy storage policies, markets, regulations, and incentive mechanisms in Massachusetts, but also those that have already been adopted or considered in different parts of the United States. And finally, a really strong track record in analyzing data will be key. So whoever we hire should be able to organize and run stakeholder sessions, as we've emphasized, as well as collect data and prepare the study on time and on budget. So we would look to a candidate that submits a proposal to this RFP that meets all the proposal requirements, including these that I've highlighted. Sort of all important for any response is, of course, the timeline. Can have these on hand in the RFP itself, but I wanted to go through and make sure these were clear. We did issue the proposal on May 20th, and of course, this is June 1st, our webinar. As Kavita mentioned earlier, the next critical date is June 9th for the final date for submitting questions. We'll be looking to take all of your questions in just a moment here, but if you have further questions, you can submit those via email, and we will respond directly to you, but also then post the question and the response on our website. The final date for submittal of proposals is June 18th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. So we'll be anxiously awaiting the arrival. And then we have, we're trying to move quickly here and would like to get started. So we're looking to interview our top applicants in that following week of June 22nd and have a consultant selected by July 1st. We then look to go through the contracting process and begin work as soon as possible in July, with the goal of completion by the end of the year or January 2016. So that sort of lays out the dates, and of course we have a few asterisks and they're just highlighting that those are anticipated. But as I've mentioned, those are our goals, and we do want to move quickly on this. So please be prepared for that. All right, well, that just about wraps up our content here. We did intend to add, looks like we do have the apologies for the red left over there. We do have the website and Kavita's email address on here. You can find Emily's address for questions on the RFP itself, but feel free to reach out to us and we'll look to take your questions now. I believe you can type them into your chat box and we'll look to receive those and respond. And we have that, I believe, till the end of this hour, of the hour-long webinar to answer any of those. So let's see.
So perhaps I'll state two of the questions that have already come in. One was asking whether we would post the webinar presentation slides online, and the answer to that is yes. There was another question on whether we will share the webinar participant list, and the answer to that is we don't plan on doing that. And then we just got a question here, and that is, should we register, should consultants register an intent to submit before the final proposal? And there's no need to do that. You can just turn in the final proposal. And here, we have a question on, can you elaborate more on whether there's a desire to have separate consultants for the two parts, or one consultant that can conduct both areas? And that is a very good question, and we try to signal that here as part of the RFP. As you will understand, the two parts are somewhat distinct, but completely related to each other. One is trying to, if you look at attachment C, is trying to assess the landscape for energy storage companies and technologies in the Commonwealth, and then looking for opportunities to grow the industry, grow the companies, bring jobs to Massachusetts, bring new companies to Massachusetts, and whatever that takes to grow the technologies. So that involves knowing the assets, and then not to forget our critical sort of university assets in the States in terms of storage research and so on. So that requires understanding the industry in Massachusetts that both exist, the assets that do exist, and how those can be grown, so understanding the adjacencies over there. Whereas the second part is to try to understand the policy and program options for the Commonwealth that can then inform, what is the cost-effective level of storage that should be deployed in the state, and what are some programs that can try to achieve that. So that's a more a policy bent in that part of the study, and that also requires understanding what other states have done, so we can understand, what lessons can be applied within the Commonwealth. So that requires understanding the policy and regulatory landscape within the Commonwealth and knowing what other states have done. So we understood that these are slightly different capabilities. So we are happy to accommodate partnerships of teams that possess the respective expertise. And also, of course, if they exist in the same entity or organization that or applicant, that's great too. So there's a question on, will you publish a list of interested parties? So I can contact possible team partners. And so maybe at this stage we say that if you can send a very short email to Emily Izzo, so eizzo@masscec.com, which is the same email that's on the RFP, and I'll try to add that here as part of our presentation. If you can express your interest in teaming with other players, then we can publish that list to people that request teaming with other participants. So I think, yes, we can facilitate that, but please let us know whether you're interested in teaming with other participants, and then when you have a question, please do send that in. Yes, so we have this question on, have you made the amount of funding available for this particular uh, uh, grant public? So it's not a grant, it's but we do have a budget for this program. So we're requesting proposals, and the budget for the two parts is a total maximum of $350,000. And that can be found on page 7 under budget requirements.
Okay, and this is Amy McGuire again from DOER. We have a question: how much of the $10 million energy storage initiative will be allocated to the study versus market signal assessment versus demonstration projects? And that's a great question. And for those of you who haven't seen, this study is one component of a broader initiative being led by DOER. We announced last week that we do have a plan to put $10 million towards the initial initiative. And as Kavita just mentioned, the total budget for this solicitation is $350,000. We'll be sharing that equally between the two agencies. So for this component of the initiative, that would be $175,000, up to $175,000, leaving a significant portion of the $10 million for the other aspects of the broader program. As to the further sort of division of those funds, we are at the very early stages of developing the program, so haven't made any of those decisions. But we will be keeping all of you informed, and of course using the study results and the report to help us further that initiative. Okay, looks like we have a few more questions coming in. And just one moment, and Kavita will take the next one.
Right. So there was a question on whether there's an adder for women and minority applicants. So on this proposal, there's no adder for women and minority applicants. And the other question was, is there a preference for small businesses? Again, on this particular RFP, there is no extra weightage on the scoring for small businesses. So the question here is, will the two agencies facilitate meetings with other agency stakeholders? I'll say that at this point, we're certainly happy to make the introductions and so on, but it will be the responsibility of the consultants under the contracts to actually pull those meetings together, you know, in terms of the logistics and we're happy to work with them, but the final responsibility is with the applicants. And not the applicants, the selected contractor. So here's a question on, would a group send two separate proposals for each section? So again, we don't require two whole proposals for each section. And again, looking at page 8 of the RFP. So I would say we if one team were submitting proposals for both, we would request you to state separate statements of qualifications, because as I explained, the two parts are slightly different, although related. And so we would like two separate statements of qualifications, and really only 1 or 2 pages are suggested, so they can stay at 1 or 2 pages for each of those. Proposed work plan and budget should be different for the two. Staff qualifications should be presented as relevant, where indicated as to whether they're relevant for one or the other. One's writing sample would be sufficient, and then the references would also have to be sort of indicative of the capabilities of the two organizations. Right.
Okay, this is Amy McGuire again. We have one other question specific to part 2, is asking how technical of a study do you foresee for part 2 from the perspective of implementing energy storage in the ISO New England region? And we do hope to have as is described here, a technical study done with the understanding that there's not necessarily time or budget to fulfill a full-on modeling and analysis of every aspect of the ISO New England region and how it relates to storage. So we would look for technical consultants, but again, and we're expecting a cost-benefit analysis and some sort of quantification of the level of storage that would be optimal for Massachusetts, but taken within the budget that we've outlined. And let's see, one more question. Are you looking for storage to be implemented in Massachusetts or ISO New England region from a cost-benefit perspective? And obviously, I'm not entirely clear on the question itself, but the context, of course, is within ISO New England, that's the ISO we sit in, but we as Massachusetts agencies would be looking to implement storage here in Massachusetts. So would be focused on the specifics of that are relevant to our state, to our Commonwealth. So please have that in mind when submitting your application. And let's see, is there a timeline to execute on the 10 million initiative, and should that be taken into consideration in the study? As I sort of highlighted earlier, we're not necessarily, we haven't reached full development of the $10 million initiative. Our goal is in the short term to develop that program and have it running and implemented. As I did mention earlier, the study will help inform that program, although we don't anticipate waiting until the full report is completed before moving forward on at least aspects of that broader initiative. As I said, we'll be looking for the study to inform us and help us make the best decisions around what a program should look like, but are hoping to do all of these different components of the initiative sort of overlapping and within a shorter time frame. And looking to see if there's any additional questions. What are expectations for collaboration or interim status reports? Let's see. I'll let Kavita take that one.
So in the RFP at the bottom of page 6, we have said that we would like the applicants to prepare 2 or 3 drafts to be shared with MassCEC and DOER. Typically, this is very typical of the studies that we conduct. The first draft typically ends up being very rough, and also, that's the draft where we really align sort of what has been produced with what the expectations are, and then subsequent drafts suffer less of a churn, but they really arrive at a very good place where the consultant produces the type of report that we are looking for. We have requested conducting a broad stakeholder meeting to discuss the findings and recommendations of the study, and that we figured would be, after one or two drafts, and those would have the purpose of discussing the findings or recommendations, or in part one, there are these market opportunities to actually shop those with a broad set of stakeholders and validate those, both in terms of what has been uncovered as well as what has been analyzed and presented. And then, the final version should be submitted by January, as is indicated on that. And then I think we've also requested developing a slide deck and being available for questions. I believe we've reached the end of the list of questions that we can see on our screen. I urge you all to please submit any other questions that you might have, or you could also turn those in by email to eizzo@masscec.com, the email that's listed on the RFP, until June 9th. But we're happy to take more questions since we have 24 minutes on the webinar. So we just got another question. Could you describe further the stakeholder survey and interview steps? That's somewhat of an open-ended question. I don't have a very prescriptive answer, but I'll try to answer to the best of our abilities at the moment, and you can please send in clarifications if you like. What I imagine is that once the consultant that we have chosen is under contract, we will have a kickoff meeting where we will together create a broad list of stakeholders from different segments. And then we can assist with any of the introductions that we are able to make. And then we expect the consultant to go ahead and conduct those interviews. As time and convenience permits, we're happy to be part of that process, but we don't require ourselves to be part of the process, nor do we guarantee that we will be part of the process. But certainly, because we're very interested in the study and the findings of the study and how it shapes, we will, we are happy to participate in these stakeholder interviews. And what we require is that we cover the different stakeholder segments for the energy storage industry and the adjacencies. You can ask a follow-on question if that wasn't clear or complete. Sounds like that was a good answer. Any other questions?
Okay, while we give anyone just a few more minutes to type. Oh, there we go. Okay. I'll look to the couple questions here coming in. First one is for Kavita again, of course. So here we go.
So the question here is, several tasks in part 1 don't specify the geographic coverage. Do these tasks only cover Massachusetts? So let's see. Perhaps the person that submitted the question can clarify whether you're looking at the scope of work or the outline. Okay, so maybe I'll just start with the scope of work. I'll take that guess and go on. It starts with, in order to understand the market perspective of the benefits and challenges of energy storage, examine the various applications of energy storage and their respective benefits. That should not be restricted to Massachusetts, but that should also not take a big part of the report. We just want to capture a broad sets of benefits and challenges, many of which may not be pertinent or current in Massachusetts. So we shouldn't limit ourselves to Massachusetts. Likewise with the description of storage technologies. However, on 1.3, create a database and qualitative companies characterized by technologies, revenues, employee size, and geographic area. Yes, we would like these to be captured for the companies in Massachusetts. And they should not be limited to just the companies. It should also capture sort of university assets such as the research in various perhaps battery chemistries or other kinds of storage technologies and applications that are currently taking place in the universities that we have in the state. And then, of course, conducting interviews and discussions with stakeholders is mostly within Massachusetts, with the exception of things that are pertinent to ISO New England. And then moving on to 1.5, that is restricted to Massachusetts. These should describe the existing programs that are in Massachusetts. And then quickly covering 1.6 is also Massachusetts. This is creating the economic models for the high and low end of growth within Massachusetts. And then 1.7 and 8 are Massachusetts focus. So just in summary, I would say when capturing the background of the technologies and benefits and challenges, since we're still looking at a very, very nascent industry in Massachusetts, we should cover the broad spectrum. But then the intent of the study is really to understand how we can promote and grow the industry in Massachusetts. So most of the remaining aspects should look at Massachusetts or Massachusetts within the ISO New England as is pertinent. So the budget, so there's a question, I'll repeat the question. Is the budget for part 1 and part 2 of the study equally distributed? Should the budget be broken by $175,000 each, or can the consultant divvy it in different proportions? So what we hoped is that the the reason we published this study as a single study in 2 parts is that we hope that the common parts are shared between the 2 parts. And so those, I would say, when presenting the budget, you can call out those that are common for the two parts. For instance, while you may want to interview the utilities for both parts, you may lump them as sort of one set of engagements with them. And those can be, I think, equally distributed. And then for the parts that are relevant to part one, they should be clearly ascribed to part one. And for the parts that are in the part two, they should be clearly ascribed to part two. So please identify the common parts, the part one and part two, and please assign appropriate budget amounts for each of those, and then we can evaluate them. So we're not sort of saying strictly that you have to assign 175,000 to each. I think the way we think of it is that the common part can be split in half, and then the part one and part two, depending on the kind of work you're doing, will be evaluated for their respective budgets. All right. I believe we've reached the end of our list of questions again. Oh, we have another one. Okay, this is an interesting question. It's a long one, so I'm going to read it out. There are a multitude of companies involved in the energy storage value chain. Do you want the database to cover inverters, financial institutions, etc., active in the storage industry? Create a database and gather qualitative data on companies characterized by technologies, revenues, employee size, geographic area, and other recommended key characteristics. Report on number of firms, workers, worker profile challenges, and opportunities. This may be informed by both primary and secondary research. I guess for this is a lot of the last part. Most of what I've read out is an excerpt from the RFP itself. The key question, I think, was at the top, which is, do you want the database to cover the what I was referring to as adjacencies, right? Referring to cover inverters, financial institutions, and so on. I think the answer is yes, if so inverters, so we would definitely like to understand the renewable farming aspects of storage. So for instance, if there is a big application for solar and storage, as we have recently heard in the news, and there is an inverter that can be engineered for this particular application, which is even more cost effective than if they were applied separately. Yes, we would like to understand that, but it must be in sort of connection with the storage applications. We don't want a dry list of all the inverter companies. So it has to be sort of relevant to storage applications in the immediate or near term. We do understand that in the long term, the landscape may change, but whatever you create the database for should be supported by the findings and the information in the report itself. So there should be a point to it. And likewise with financial institutions, they should, if they've been, for instance, again, taking the same example of the combination of solar and storage, if they have invested heavily in solar installations and sort of something about the kinds of investments sets it up for storage applications, absolutely. If they will consider storage investments, absolutely, they should be listed. If they won't, that's hard to justify in the database. So we would really like the database to be usable, and we would like to do a lot with it and understand a lot from it. So we just want to make sure that all of the information there is pertinent. And I do acknowledge that some of it is a bit of an art, because the long range reality may be very different from what it appears today. Any other questions? So the question is, how will the interviews be conducted, in person or on the phone? If I would say that in-person interviews are, of course, preferable. It just helps the efficiency of the interview process. On the other hand, yeah, if there's a compelling reason that it can't be in person, we're happy to accommodate, over the phone interviews as well. But I just want to signal that in-person interviews just are much better. So if you can, we should do an in-person interview. Of course, we don't financially support the travel to the interview. Any other questions? Okay, I think we had a great run of questions. Again, I want to encourage you all to turn in any other questions that you might have to the email listed on the RFP. Again, there's no need to register intent of submitting a proposal. We just encourage you to turn in a full proposal by the deadline. And I, of course, want to thank you all for attending this webinar, and we hope that both the webinar and the responses were helpful. We will post the presentation and the questions and answers on our website. I think you can find a link to it from the page that the RFP is listed on, and hope you all are encouraged to submit proposals. So with this, I think we will close out. If there are no further questions, again, thank you all for your attention, and have a great afternoon, everyone.